I'd just like to talk a little bit about thoughts, thoughts of the mind. Originally, the person who's most credited with finding that the thought life was the problem in life was Buddha, the original Buddha. And he wondered, why do rich people suffer? Why do poor people suffer? Why do middle ground people suffer? What is the suffering that goes on in mankind? And he discovered that it was all coming out of the mind. The problem is we've all got minds and they're all troublesome, so what can you do? One of the great descriptions I've heard in my life, and I found it quite helpful, was that we are the blue sky, and the blue sky always remains there forever. But thoughts, they're like little clouds that come along and they pass like this. The problem is, if we think we are our thoughts, if we think we're one and the same thing, well, there's nothing we can do. But we are not our thoughts. And here's a helpful thing. Sometimes if a thought, like a cloud, comes from nowhere, we didn't ask it to come, we didn't invite it to come, and where did it come from? I mean, this is the question with these things. Where do these things come from? There comes a cloud, and it's a thought that you didn't want. It's disturbing. Thoughts are always connected with emotion. They always disturb your emotion in some way or other and get you going. And remember, the emotions believe everything they hear, so they're pretty stupid. So you get a disturbing thought, disturbs the emotion, and suddenly now we're disturbed, But what we can do is that we can, instead of running away from the thought or indulging in it, the two things you don't want to do, one of the things you can do is just watch it. Just watch it come. And it passes like this. And as this thought with disturbing emotions makes its way across the backdrop of your blue sky, who you are, you can start to watch that thought. And it might be painful, it might be disturbing, it might be raking up things you don't want to think about. But you're not going to respond to it, you're just going to sit there and watch it. And then you'll begin to discover, as you watch, that the thought is the thought, and you are you. You are the watcher. The thought, with its disturbed emotions, is not watching you. You are watching it. And you start to realize there's a difference between the two entities. You are one entity, and the thought is quite another. And there's a gap. And it's in this gap. One of the methods of diminishing destructive thoughts is to observe them. So instead of running away from them, taking antidepressants or painkillers or whatever you do, you can actually just observe them and they become diminished in their power. The way in which a thought, a spurious thought that comes from nowhere across the blue sky of your attention, the way it gathers strength is by you paying attention to it, starting to think, oh my God, I've got a problem here. How am I going to deal with this? Now you're trying to deal with a problem that never existed in the first place, except it was just an idea, just a thought that came. I used to have a picture in my mind years ago that helped me. I don't know if you've ever seen this, it's quite funny. Sometimes in the Far East mostly, there's a big junction in the middle of a city, and the traffic coming, maybe 10 different lanes coming into one intersection. And they get these traffic cops with the white gloves on, really slick uniform, and they almost do a dance. It's great to see. And they stop the traffic this way, move the traffic on that way, and they're doing all these actions, and they control the junction. And it's very entertaining to watch. And they keep things rolling. And that's the whole thing. They keep things rolling, okay? So if you imagine that junction is like your mind, it's like the middle of your attention. Because we're so powerful, we make things happen. Thoughts are always trying to hitch a ride on our attention so they can have us create what's in the back of the lorry, say. The lorry, the thought that's coming along into the junction can't make things happen itself. We're the ones who make things happen. So the lorry comes along, or the car comes along, or the cart, wherever it is, into the junction, trying to get our attention so that we can turn that idea into reality. Okay? The cart, the thought, the lorry, the car, they can't create these things themselves. They're just ideas. That's all they are. And let's remember, everything in the world, whether it's a clock or a video that we're watching now, a house, there's nothing made in this earth that wasn't first of all created in the imagination. So here's the thought that comes. We don't want the thought. And then it comes like this. If we pay attention to it, and pay enough attention to it, and focus on it too much, a similar thought will come along, and more. And the next thing we know, we're starting to create the situation that the thought couldn't create for itself. It's hitched a ride upon us. So my picture of the traffic cop, which is quite entertaining, there he is in the middle of the junction, and he represents who we are. We're the blue sky. And all of a sudden a big lorry comes through carrying fish, lots of dead fish and horrible stuff, whatever. And its engine's not doing so well, it's belching out smoke, And that's a picture of maybe a disturbing memory, a disturbing thought. We didn't want it to come. We just want to eat our lunch or watch the TV or sit in the garden and read a newspaper or go for a nice walk. And now we're being pounded by a horrible thought. It's not what we want, is it? These things are random. And it's a bit like this lorry comes in. And even though the lorry looks like it's going to break down and it smells and there's smoke billowing out and everything else, don't inspect the lorry. That's the rule. Keep the thing, go on, keep going. And the driver's going, I think I'm going to break down. Keep moving, get out of my junction. This is my junction. This is my feelings. This is my life. I don't want to entertain you. And the great thing is about the picture of the traffic cop is that he's in charge of the junction, but the lorry is separate. They're not the same thing. And it's the same when you've got your blue sky, and there you are. You remain when the cloud's gone. You don't know where it came from. You don't know where it's going to go, but you remain. You, the observer, the watcher. Okay. Now I realise in life we can become plagued by these things. And the reason quite often we become plagued with random spurious thoughts is we pay too much attention to them. And the worst thing in the world, and this really is the worst thing, is we think that we are our thoughts, but we're not. You know yourself, I was speaking to somebody a few days ago, as a lady who's had some trouble and blah blah blah, as many of us do. And I could see by her face she was really troubled, and she said she'd been for a long walk, and I knew where she'd gone for a walk. It was around a beautiful lake, and she said I think she came back feeling worse after the walk than the beginning. And I said to her, well, is that because you couldn't control your thoughts on the walk? Were you being bombarded? And she looked at me and she says, yeah, that's true. And so we had to have a conversation similar to this I'm having now, and that is that unless we are aware of these things, we'll have no defence against thoughts, because she thought that spurious ideas, spurious fears that come in, disturbing the emotions, she just thought, well, that's the way I think. Oh, I'm a bit of a worrier, me, and she thinks that she is a thought, but she's not. And she's already learned in a very short space of time, you know what, I'm not going to stop you in a junction, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to watch you, and you will diminish because I'm watching you. And this is the chance, I suppose, if you can call it like a warfare or a game, a video game or something. This is the chance that a spurious thought takes. It comes, it wants to get your attention, it wants to disturb you, it wants you to think that you are it. But when it does this, it takes a chance, see, because if we make the separation and become the observer now, as we watch the thought, okay, as the human observer, as the reality, we're the real reality. Those thoughts are not reality, they're just ideas. As we watch them, we diminish them. And they come less often, they come less powerfully, and we become very familiar with their tricks. So I just wanted to share that with you today. And I hope the idea of the traffic cop, keep moving, keep that fish lorry, get it out of here, and the idea of we are the blue sky, and the thoughts come across. And one last thought, and this is quite a good one as well before I go, and that is we don't know where the thoughts come from. And I can promise you we are one thing and the thoughts are another. And another way to prove this is try and keep hold of one of these things. In it comes, roar, like this. You think, alright, then I'll engage with the thought. Next thing it's gone, there's another one come. So really they're separate, and I know that's very hard to understand, but thoughts are thoughts and we are we. Thoughts go and go away. Don't stop them, let them go. They won't kill you, they won't destroy you, just watch them. But we're the blue sky, we remain.